So we can all agree that racism is bad, right? Like, I don't think there's any discussion about it. We don't have to have a conversation about it. You ask anyone, white, black, Asian, Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, they're all gonna say racism is bad. And when they say racism is bad, they mean judging someone based off the color of their skin. Because that's what racism is, right? When you judge someone based off the color of their skin, or how they look, or how they act, and you base that on your perception of them. I don't really think that everyone actually believes that when some people say that racism is bad, that they genuinely believe that racism is bad. And I think a big part of that stems from the fact that racism isn't just something that happens on a personal level, but is ingrained in our society. And that's just my take. I think that racism isn't just a construct either, though, because that takes away from the actual element of accountability in racism. There's a fine line we have to walk as a society, and a part of that line is recognizing that just blaming the society for being racist doesn't actually address the racism that is on personal. Like personal racism needs to be dealt with in different ways than systemic racism. But it's all racism. And even if it has like a similar root, or this it's the same root, because slavery, I guess slavery isn't the root of slave racism. It's the root of racism in America. But like white people have been being racist even before they found out African Americans were a commodity they could just buy and sell. But I think that like racism is bad. And even before racism, people were judging each other and being awful people. But as an American citizen, right, and as a person, I can only deal with what's happening right now. And I can look back at what has happened. And I can look back at why things have happened and use them to address the problems that we're currently facing. But also, I think it's really disgusting that a few people, and that some people who will say that racism is bad, for some reason don't actually acknowledge that anything bad happened prior to what's now. And if they do acknowledge that slavery like systematically like it didn't just enslave African Americans. It beat them down mentally. It beat them down spiritually. It beat them down in so many ways that it's just hard to fathom that someone can say, well, I wasn't a part of it, so you don't have an excuse. And don't get me wrong. I think a lot of people are going to argue, an excuse. You're black, you just want an excuse. And it's not about that. It's never been about that. That's a really weird like line of reasoning that only like racists and people who are perpetuating a narrative try to like get across. Because I don't think I've ever met an African American who just wanted an apology or just wanted like someone to give them money. Like we all want money, but like more than that, we just want happiness. Just not just black people, but just people in general. Like it doesn't make much sense to me, I guess. And the idea that someone can argue that you're not a person that deserves anything because you've been systematically oppressed for hundreds of years. And every time your people tried to get something, we put them down. And then we took more from them and we kept taking from them. And for some reason, that's not a reasonable discussion to have. And I don't want to get into like parties and politics because I'm going to talk more about that Friday. This isn't a political channel, by the way. I just want to talk about that this week because that's the kind of stuff that's going on in America right now. But I think the polarizing climate of today has shaped how, not just politically, but how we socially interact with one another, whether it's social media, and we like as a people ignore people's opinions that don't line up with like the bubble that we find ourselves in. And it's just crazy because I just really want to understand people, but I can't have discussions with people that don't recognize my humanity. Like, if you don't recognize me as a human being, then how can we ever talk about the struggles that we're going through, not just as a people, but that we are going through as a society, as the human race? And I think that's why like we've been slow to like deal with climate change and to deal with like issues that are affecting the planet as a whole and that affect life on Earth. Because we're so entranced in what is happening right now, and we're so fixated on like things that we think are big that we don't ever stop to like look at the little things and look at how those little things translate into things that are genuinely humongous, like things that are almost insurmountable to one human being, like fixing the climate crisis or feeding the needy or like feeding the hungry, right? Or like ending poverty. No one person can do that. The problem is that like all of those things are things that I genuinely believe can be fixed with unity and respect and compassionate and empathy. And I don't mean like the tooth fairy comes around. I mean people coming together and recognizing that even though we're different and even though we want to handle problems differently, these are problems that need to be handled. And we can kind of at least come to an understanding on how we can or how we should go about handling them instead of arguing about the humanity of a people or arguing about why you're not allowed, your opinion isn't valid, or why how you feel about oppression isn't actually how it works, or like it's just dumb. Like, and I really want to blame Republicans for it, but also there are just really shady Democrats too. Like, I don't think that any party is really absolved the responsibility in this because people need to organize and not as parties but as people, because people make up parties, people are groups, and we get lost in like these groups when in reality you are the group should empower you, not the other way around. Because if the group empowers you and you empower the people in the group can come together and every individual in that group will be much stronger, despite race, despite all of the things that could possibly hold us as a society back. And it's just crazy because I genuinely believe that if people try to understand each other, I'm not asking people to agree. You don't have to agree with my takes or agree with my opinions. Just hear me talk. Just listen and then respond. But like, don't respond to an argument that you think I'm having with you. If you think that I'm coming at your throat, or you think that I'm coming at you sideways, or you think that I'm like that I'm offensive to you, tell me why. Ask me if I was doing that. How can I ever correct what I'm doing? How can I ever like readjust my opinion? Readjust where we're going as a society, as a culture, if we don't ever individually ask, hey, what do you want? Not what do you want to the collective, but what do you want, you, the person? Because I think we can all agree that we want our kids to live in a safe and happy world, right? We all want happiness. We all want to live a good life. But we also want to like set up our kids and our grandchildren to live a good life, right? We want the people to come after us to be successful, to have an opportunity of greatness, to have an opportunity to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, to have an opportunity to go after it. I want to go after it. But I understand that it's not just about me. It's not just about people. It's about empowering those people. And that's why racism is bad. Because a lot of people don't like stop to acknowledge the fact that people are more than just collectives. When you're being racist towards a group of people, you're stripping that group of people of their humanity. And I want to talk about all groups, but like this, I gotta say, white people need to calm down. Like, I see all you allies, all you guys who are out there doing a great job, doing your part, I love you guys. But like to some of you who still sit back and you're like, protests are cool, but you're questioning why Colin Kaepernick had to kneel. And whenever you see a protest, it makes you feel uncomfortable, and therefore you have to justify someone's murder. You have to go through the steps to disagree with somebody about murder. And think about it, right? Like, you'll genuinely see people trying to justify murder because the murder happened to someone they disagree with. And I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican or what your race is, but when someone dies, death is something that is much more important than any group that you belong to. And it's when people in a group die that people get upset. Not the group, people. Because people are always going to be people. But I'm going to say this again, right? We need to empower people before we empower groups. Because people are groups. I don't know what else to say because racism is bad and you know that. The problem is that you won't acknowledge that you're probably racist. You know if you are or if you're not. But if you are, most likely you'll justify it. You'll sit down and try to explain it to yourself. And what you need to do is ask yourself, am I justifying horrendous acts that are happening to another human being? Don't give me statistics. Don't give me odds. Don't try to justify it with, oh, they're more responsible for this, or they're more responsible for that. Or the odds say, that's what police are more in their communities. Stop. A human is dead. Multiple humans are dead. And their lives are bigger than any number. Because if that was you, you wouldn't have the opportunity to be upset or to be angry. You'd be dead. People are mad because they're people. And people make up the community. The United States is made up of people. And it's about time that those people got respect. God. That they got not just equality, but equity. I'm not qualified to answer any questions or to like give an in-depth lecture on economics. But what I can say is try to understand your brothers and sisters. Try to understand others and try to have empathy. I'm Nathan. That's my take. If you like this video, leave a comment below, like, subscribe, whatever you're feeling. I'm gonna post Monday, Wednesday, Friday about whatever I feel like talking about. Whether it's something I'm interested in, maybe a movie I watched. Coming next Wednesday, I'm gonna make a video about police because that's what's happening in the world right now. But don't expect heavy topics all the time. And Friday, I'm gonna be talking about politics because I want to talk about that a little bit more because I think that's dumb and it's also bad. I guess everything I'm talking about this week is bad, but that's just because a lot of bad things are happening in the world right now. But if you have empathy, you've got hope, you empower the people around you, and you do your part, hopefully, one day at a time, things are going to get better. I'm Nathan, that's my take, and thank you for watching.